Alright, welcome back. This is a review of Fruits Basket 2019, Episode 4. I would have had this video out sooner, but I watched the episode when it came out last week, but then I've just been busy that weekend and then this entire week, so I haven't been able to have the time to do it until just now. So, that means I get the episode out tomorrow as well. Anyway, so this is an episode where we get to meet Kagura, who turns out to be the boar and has a very strong liking towards Kyo. I really like what they did with this episode, because I know that prior to this episode coming out, there were a lot of people who were worried about how it was going to be handled because we had already introduced the whole concept of the cultural festival, which doesn't happen until after at least the next maybe 1 or 2 episodes, depending on how that goes tomorrow. But because it was either going to be like you're going to have Kagura and the cultural festival happen at the same time, but then the cultural festival leads right into the Hattori, and then people were worried that they were going to be jumbling it up and mixing it in. But one of the options I hadn't really seen people mention was that they could possibly do what I kind of thought what they might do, which is that they pretty much just add filler to the episode and see what happens. Which is what they did. They went ahead and it's pretty much it plays out exactly how episode 4 from the original plays out, except for that the filler is different. So I actually want to get into that. So I actually really like the filler, how it's handled in 2019 more than I like the original, how they did the filler in the original. I think 2019's is more funny, and it also builds more character for Kagura, and a little bit even, I'd say, more for Toru and Kagura's relationship as well. Because, so with the original, what they did, all the main things are the same with the exception of that their fillers were different. So I'll kind of backtrack a little. So Kagura is kind of a slightly more old-school tsundere type character, because what I've noticed nowadays is that tsunderes aren't quite the same as they used to be. They're typically a little bit more sarcastic. They're still a little bit violent, or in terms of aggressive and hitting, but they're typically more sarcastic, and they're more tsundere in what they say. Kagura is kind of a little bit more on the old-school side. Think of like Taiga from Toradora, and that although Taiga's still a little bit more on the dairy than on the Tsun. Kagura's a little bit more of the balance, where she's definitely the Tsun, but she's definitely the dairy as well at times. But she's not super old school either, like Akane from On My Half, where it's like, no, that's a lot of Tsun there you have, not a lot of dairy. But typically, and this is why I bring this up, because I'm going to get into it in the filler portion, is that typically tsundere type characters are typically shown as, oh, they're not really good at like cooking and cleaning, and this is important, particularly for Kagura's character, not cooking and cleaning, but because it involves the filler stuff, but more so because both versions of the filler show 2 different ways that you can kind of portray a tsundere character, in that Kagura in particular is someone who she's very passionate, and sometimes, especially in particular passionate about Kyo, and so sometimes that leads her to overdoing things. It's not everything, it's just when it comes to Kyo, so her love for him is off the charts, and so sometimes she just overdoes things. So the original filler went with kind of the old school, kind of typical tsundere type deal, where it's like, oh, the tsundere wasn't good at cooking and cleaning, and so what they did was that they had her not be good at cooking and cleaning. So she tries to like clean Kyo's clothes and winds up putting too much detergent in the wash and she makes soap go everywhere. And then while she's trying to deal with that, she had forgotten that she left a tea kettle on, and winds up halfway burns down Shigure's kitchen. Or she sets fire to it anyway. But then she takes responsibility and she goes out and she cleans up. And then Toru comes in and they have a heart-to-heart while they're fixing the doors, and they make little animal pictures on it. And in a sense, something similar happens here with Toru. But the difference is that they don't go with the typical tsundere route, and that they actually show that no, Kagura is in fact good at cooking. And so good that she winds up making a feast, and she winds up overdoing it and using up everything that's in Shigure's refrigerator. And which it would have been perfectly fine, except for that, she tries to get Kyo to come downstairs to eat the food, and he doesn't want to, so she gets overly emotional and, like, punches him through the floor, and then he lands on the table and breaks it and destroys all the food that she had just made. To which then Kagura, once again, she takes responsibility and leaves to go buy more groceries. To which then Toru meets her out there, and they kind of have a heart-to-heart. And this is where you kind of get first introduced to something that I don't even think it was in the original anime, because it's, if I remember correctly, so this isn't something that's brought up until way later in the manga, and that's Kagura actually meeting Kyo for the first time, and him, when he was a kid, drawing him drawing a fried egg in the dirt. And so you wind up getting this, because again, I'm pretty sure that's not until, like, near the end of the series, or not near the end, but much later on in the manga that shows up. So what ends up happening is that Kagura and Toru have kind of this heart-to-heart. That gets brought up and shown off early, and then when they get back to the house, Shigure's house, you actually see them cooking together and working together, and that they've actually become closer. So it's not just a typical, a new girl character is introduced, and she's kind of this kind of rivalish, she doesn't like Toru. I'm thinking back to, like, series like, definitely with stuff like, Ron Mahaft, where it's like every single new girl character that introduced has some sort of, like, rivalry. Like, they get along, but they're, like, real, like, rivalry towards each other. A lot of the times. But no, they show them that Toru and Kagura, they get along, they actually become friends, they become closer, and it's really sweet, and I really like it. And then, of course, Kagura winds up, they make hamburgers, and Kagura makes a fried egg and puts it on Kyo's, and that's kind of sweet and cute in its own way. And it shows kind of her character, a little bit of a development for her, that she is caring. She does have a tendency to overdo things and become overexcited, especially when it comes to Kyo, but she is caring and whatnot. And so it's nice to show that she is developing as a character, and not just kind of a stick in the mud, in a sense, and not just falls into the typical tsundere tropes. I think other than that, though, I think really that's about it, except for one thing I want to bring up is, of course, the ending with where Toru gets a call from her grandfather. And so if you remember anything here, he said he would contact her when if you remember, he said that he would contact her when the remodeling was done. So the next episode I can see them handling it two different ways. They could either make the entire episode just dealing with Toru and her grandfather, and then the next episode being her friends and the cultural festival, or they could split it to where next episode is dealing with her and her grandfather, and then the other half of the episode is their friends, and then the next episode after that deals with the culture festival. Either way, I think it's good. I'm excited. We're all back on track again. Again, I know a lot of people were worried, but we're all good to go now. So that's really about it. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.